share and pass.
Oh, I'll hold it. I'll give it to you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Did you all enjoy lunch? Good. There's more out there if you want seconds. I already saw many of you donating to the LTC. Thank you so much. I just want to remind you of this little QR code that you can scan with your phone. And if you donate $20 or more, you can get a book. You can get Seeking Common Ground, which is an anthology of the 2017 Encuentro, which was curated by, where is he? Jose Luis Valenzuela. The essays are edited by Trevor Buffoni, Teresa Marrero, and Chantal Rodriguez. And the graphics were by one of our panelists, Herbert Siguenza. So I'm sure you have room in your carry-on for a book. So if you see this and you think you might want to donate, you should. And then tell me or Amelia or Abigail, and we will get you a book. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. If you sat far because you're scared, then I guess that's okay. But if you sat far because you just didn't know or you were shy, please feel free to come close. It's a conversation. Okay. Jose Luis is afraid.
You should be.
I'm so excited to chat with all of these incredible artists. Our panel today could not be more illustrious and has representatives from so many different art forms who are working in Latina comedy in so many different ways, and I'm just so grateful to all of you. I want to kick off with an opportunity for everyone to introduce themselves. So if you'll share who you are, your pronouns, and a little bit about your artistry.
Hi, my name's Evelina Hernandez. I'm a playwright and actor working with the Latino Theater Company in Los Angeles for 37 years. We operate the Los Angeles Theater Center in the historic core of downtown Los Angeles. I write stage plays. I write for TV. And I write speeches for Jose Luis. Yeah, so that's what I do.
Hi, I'm Herbert Siguenza, he, his, Gordo. I'm a founding member of Culture Clash. They do a little comedy. Cinco de Mayo was 38 years together, yeah. So I need a medal. And I'm currently ending a 6-year run as playwright in residence at the San Diego Repertory Theater, which is closing their doors this month. We'll talk more about that later, but, or not. And I'm currently in Don Quixote.
Hi, I'm Donelle Prado. I am a stand-up comedian based here in Denver, but I lived in Los Angeles for 7 years where I had the honor of working with Culture Clash. I did the Latino Laugh Festival in San Antonio in 1999, I believe that was. So now that I'm in Denver, I'm a regular at the Comedy Works, the Denver Improv, perform all over. I travel a lot to perform, and I also do theater, murder mystery theater here at El Centro. I love it here, so big supporter, and I'm just happy to be here with you all today.
And you're hosting at Raíces tonight, 10:30.
Yes, I'll be hosting Raíces tonight, so yes.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Dawes, she, her, and I'm originally from Austin, Texas, but I'm living in Fayetteville, Arkansas right now for grad school. And I'm primarily a playwright, but I would say also producer and teaching artist. And I trained at Second City in Chicago. I've always had a little mixture of improv, sketch, storytelling, stand-up kind of infused in the theater work that I like to do. And then producing, I produced under this company called Heckle Her, and the focus of that in Austin was really to put women of color in particular on stage in comedy and be leading comedic projects. So I ran this show called Doper Than Dope for 2 what we called seasons. It was just what if In Living Color never ended? What if House of Buggin' was still on the air? What would that look like? And so that was really fun because it wasn't actually me writing, it was just producing a piece like that. So I'm really happy to be here. Thanks.
We're so happy you're all here. I'm gonna kick off with a super easy question about why Latine comedy is important. I put forward some ideas yesterday, but since y'all weren't here, just invite, I think there's a lot of different aspects, right? Some of it, comedy can be for fun and entertainment. It can be a survival strategy. It can be a weapon against oppression. And I just would love to hear from each of you why culturally specific comedy is important for you.
Well, I think it's part of our tradition as Chicanos and Mexicanos. I think comedy is an important part of our oral tradition, our written tradition. And it's a way that we deal with a lot of trauma in our community, a lot of struggle in our community. Most of our stories, especially Chicano-Mexicano stories, are stories about struggle in the US. And so taking that tradition of comedy that we have, the carpas mexicanas, cantinflas, and Chicano theater. So my roots are in Chicano theater. I began with El Teatro de la Esperanza, El Teatro Primavera. So there was actually a Chicano theater movement before any of you guys were born. In the late 1960s and 70s. And comedy is, a huge part of that movement. Because Chicano theater comes from a combination of comedia del arte and carpa mexicana. So those are, 2 very important elements that part of the creation of the style of El Teatro Campesino, and a lot of other theater companies, El Teatro de la Gente, El Teatro de la Esperanza, El Teatro Primavera. There were hundreds of Chicano theater companies at a time, and we had an organization called TENAS, Teatros Nacionales de Aztlán. So there were, and Su Teatro was part of that. We were part of it with El Teatro de la Esperanza. Anyway. So when I write comedy, it's because I write stories about a people in struggle, and I write for a very specific audience, which is the Chicano-Mexicano audience in Los Angeles. So I know what they like. They like to laugh. They like to cry. They like music. And they like dancing. And we try to put those 4 elements in all of our plays. And there's a lot of comedy, but it's also contrasted with a lot of pathos. So that's kind of the reason that we use comedy, is to deal with those stories of struggle and trauma, and have our audiences be able to enjoy those stories without, nobody likes to revisit trauma, right? So I think it makes it a better experience for our audience.
All three of us in Culture Clash come from that tradition. We know that tradition, but we're kind of in the latter part of it. We're still too young to be really part of it, you know? And no, I definitely catch the lesson, but no, but I think we became popular because we were talking about our bilingualness, our biculturalness, our assimilated selves, you know? Because, yeah, I would watch Cantinflas and I would watch all these shows, but to me they were kind of like old country, kind of old fashioned, you know? It was like they were cute, but they were not funny to me because I had American taste, right? Because I grew up with the 60s the sitcoms, The Munsters, Gilligan's Island, these real high concept shows, right? The sitcoms, right? Yeah, they were just wacky, right? And the Addams Family, right, which is popular still. So I caught the originals, and we grew up with all those crazy characters. And then Monty Python came out, with their weird and but smart comedy. And then Richard Pryor with his comedy. So all these influenced us as writers, you know. So we had the Chicano background, but we really used a lot of our American selves to write about. And I think that's where people related, because they were also second generation, third generation Latinos. They weren't, from the old country.
Thank you. I think Latina comedy is important to give our people a voice, because as far as stand-up goes, you can write your own script and you can say whatever you want. And how many opportunities do you get to just do that, And I should say because you guys are looking at me like, what's the Latina doing up there, right? So I am. You're like, she's at the wrong building. I'm half Japanese and half Mexican. Okay, I'm Filipino. But my culture is very important to me, both my Latina side, my Asian side. So I try to, it all is who I am, but representing that and speaking of my culture and performing and making it clear to my audience is that through my experiences as a Latina person is important. And I think not just for Latino crowds but also mainstream crowds, just to show exposure and just let everybody know that we all have some more similarities and differences. But I think it's important to be true to yourself as a comedian, and part of that truth is who I am as a Latina and Asian woman with Kim Jong-un hair. Thanks.
That's awesome. Can't wait to hear you tonight.
Yes, and all of the thing. I mean, yes, your opening speech was so great. Just like, yeah, that's exactly why we're here and why this is so important. And the thing I think I could add to that is absolutely like the mirror that we see on stage, if we're not in charge of creating that narrative, is such a narrow scope of what our actual experience is. And I'm Black and Latina, and I'm looking for stories, and I'm looking specific for stories that even just in the ballpark of what my experience is, because it's pretty limited to see that reflected on stage. But I'm writing for like little baby Adrienne Dawes, who really wanted to be an actor, and like every show I was cast in, I had to learn fight choreography because my character was being killed or being attacked on stage. And I just thought, like, who I want to be is like the ingenue. I want to be the funny, like, cute girl on stage. And that's not how people saw me, and so it's really rewarding to, like, in the writer's seat, you really do have so much control, so much power, so much influence. And so since I've kind of been in that space, or really made that my priority of the space I wanted to be in, it's just been great to see people find themselves in the work. And yes, sometimes it is very culturally specific. They're like, I'm also Black, I'm also Latinx, I also have that experience, I'm also adopted, all of the like other little things that make us these very specific people, but it's as rewarding when someone who has nothing to do with your background at all like sees a reflection of themselves, or just have an appreciation for it too. It's like, it's okay if that's not exactly your story on stage. There's something about the humanity or the expression that does catch you in a laugh, like, oh my God, I didn't think I was supposed to laugh at that, or oh my God, I haven't seen that on stage, and how amazing that you put it up there. So that's, in short, that's why it's important.
Awesome. Y'all spoke to this a little bit, but I'd love to dig in deeper into the who it's for piece. I think there's comedy art in general, but comedy can be so subjective, right? What I find funny, what each of you find funny, what audiences find funny, it just depends, of course. And Evelina, you said you're writing for a very specific audience, and you told us who that was. Of course, that's not the only people who will see your work. And to possibly introduce an unwelcome visitor or idea into the room, it's not who the critics are. And I'm curious what all of your experience is in terms of who you are making the work for and who has the power to decide whether the work is good, whether it gets a platform to vet it in that way or authenticate it. Yeah, if you can just speak to that experience. Who's the work for, and how that how the audience who is meant to receive it is or is not who's giving you your flowers.
Good question. That's a great question. I think as far as Culture Clash goes, I think we were so honest being bicultural that we saw ourselves as Americans, and so we didn't have this separation. You know, like we knew we're Latino already, so we knew we were going to reach out to the Latinos and they would like what we were saying. But we also had other things to say, and I think that was more universal. So it's like, we have Latinos, we have people that the mainstream that likes us because we're just being honest, And I think that's where comedy is successful, no matter what, if it's Latine or African American, whatever. I think it's the truth, it's honesty, and that universality is what gets through to people. And I think that's why we've been successful, as far as like in regional theaters and all that stuff in mainstream, because we're still very Chicano. There's no question about it, but I think there's an honesty there that people say, yes, I get that.
Yeah. It's a tricky question. Our theater company is an independent theater company. We're not, we're kind of like Su Teatro, right? In LA, we have our own place, we have our own theater. We decide what the season is, it's on us. We raise the money, we run the building, we do the whole thing. I personally have not ever, and this might sound bad or arrogant, but it's never been a thing for me to want to be produced at the regional theaters. It's not something that I aspire for. It's not, I write for my community. I write for Los Angeles Chicanos, right? So I know who, my audience is. I know who the Latino Theater Company audience is. But there's something revolutionary about putting characters on the stage that your community doesn't see on the stage and at the regionals, right? Because look, the truth is, at the regional theaters, they'll do plays that they're comfortable with, right? That they feel that their audience is very comfortable with, right? So we have the opportunity to tell our stories the way we want them to be told. We have the opportunity to give opportunity to other playwrights, other artists, because we do have our own theater, other directors, other designers, other actors. We have the opportunity to put them on the stage, because so many times I get very worried about, when we started out doing Chicano theater, there were a handful of us studying theater, right, at the universities. We were all, Chicano studies or history, or, we were studying other things, but we weren't in the theater department. So I get very worried about students coming out of the universities and what they're going to do, right? And if their goal is to get a job working at the regionals, then they're not going to be happy. One thing, I hear so many. She can tell. This girl can tell you stories right here. Okay, you hear so many stories, right? And I'm not criticizing anybody who wants to do that. If you want to do that, great. But if that's all you want to do, and when you have the opportunity to empower yourself, make your own work, right? We all started making our own work. We started by making our own work because we had to. If we didn't tell our stories were not told. And it's the same today. It's the same case today. We're telling our own history. The way I see Chicano theater, and I always say this to, when I speak to students, we're telling our own, we're documenting our lives. We're documenting our stories in this country. We're the documenters of Latinate life, in this country, because we're the ones that are doing it on the stage, right? So I worry about that, but I'm saying, my point being that, and we get great reviews, we get LA Times Critics Pick all the time if they come and review us, right? But they don't always come and review us because we're not a regional theater. We're an independent theater. Like, we have a show up right now, and we haven't gotten reviewed by the LA Times. I don't care. I don't need it. I don't need it, because when I come out of the theater and my community is there, and they're saying, oh my God, Evelina, our community needed this story so bad. I feel so great. This is the first show I've seen since COVID, blah, 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 blah. That's all I need. That's the only validation that I need.
This is fascinating. Thank you. For me, I perform for everybody. I want to offend everybody. And I'm at a point where, and I'm at an age where, okay, yeah. If I say, maybe it's me. If I say something that that's true to me, but somebody takes the wrong way, I don't really worry about it because I'm going to be true to myself. You know what I mean? And sometimes I'll say things that really happen, and people be like, "Oh, that's stereotypical," or that's something. But no, this really happened to me. This is my experience. So, if it is, if I bring up a stereotype, it's just because to show the absurdity behind it and how stupid it is. And and some people say, "Well, I think that you shouldn't talk about race or that." I'm like, "But listen, we're talking about it. We're having a conversation, so that's important." So. My biggest compliment is not just if I can make somebody laugh, but if I can make them think. So to me, it's important. We have a voice, and we have a responsibility as such to use it and to make people think and to bring up these issues that we're dealing with, that we've dealt with our whole lives. So if certain venue doesn't want to hear they only want the white humor or something, then I'm not for you, and that's fine, because I have found enough people that can appreciate and relate to what I'm saying. So that's what I think.
I will say I love crafting a joke for like one person in the audience and being like, I know this person thinks this is really funny, and it's okay. Nobody else is gonna laugh. I have a joke about the Greeks. It's not gonna be funny to anyone in this room because the person that it's written for is not here. But it's one of those things like so fun to watch them crack up and then the room kind of go, wait, why are they laughing? And I think that's so fun to play with, especially folks that are multilingual, to play with that texture, you know what I mean? Of like there could be a current of a joke going underneath the main narrative, and only a few people in the room might really, really, really laugh really hard at it. And it's fun to kind of offer that for an audience of like, some people will be in the know and others won't, and it's okay. And there are some jokes where it's like, yes, I'm gonna make the entire room like laugh. But I also think it's really important to think about that too, of like, I'm trying to make myself laugh. If I laugh at the desk, there's a good chance I'm gonna laugh in the room. I think the room is also such a great teacher too, of like, ooh, that's really only funny to me, and maybe one other person, maybe I wanna change that. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm thinking of myself, I'm thinking of my friends, I'm thinking of my family. Like, there's no greater joy of like, there's a very specific person you have in mind, and you're like, I don't know about you, but I have a lot of like really great laughers that are in my friend group. Like you can put them in the front row of any opening night show and they make so much noise, even at things that are not funny, that I don't think are funny, but they're so essential to our community because they laugh and they respond and they're like gonna make noise. And in some theater spaces that feels really weird. There's like a policing of like what noise you can make, and so much of how we play is like that interaction with an audience. They're the missing ensemble member, and they finally show up for the first show, and it's such a great teacher. So I love all of those elements of it, and with critics at my stage in playwriting, I've had a few. They've all been predominantly white. I haven't really had too many like critics of color like interact with my work. So I don't know. I get a lot of like, well, this clearly wasn't written for me, but I guess it's okay. You know what I mean? I get a lot of that more than like, oh, you're talking about this very specific thing and I understand the context of where this is from, because I don't feel the pressure to explain all of the context. Sometimes I feel like it is helpful, like, oh, maybe to understand this joke I need to explain this is how this fits in. But other times I feel like, nah, fuck it. Like, if 5 people get it, great. I'm happy, I'm done. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. I do love the image of you writing alone at your desk and laughing. Like, that's just great. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Donelle, you said something that just struck me, and I wanted to learn more from all of you about it. You said that it's great if people laugh, and then another layer if you can also make them think. And for me, I find that I actually think best when I am laughing. Like I'm more likely to be open-minded and ready to think about something new or change my opinion if I'm laughing. But I've had this experience, now that Evelina's referenced my bumpy trajectory in the American theater, I can say that I have had this experience with artistic directors or other, leaders, people who have the power to program work, where when we talk about a comedy, there's this reaction, or like the desire to bring forward a comedy, there's this reaction of like, well, there's the culturally specific slot and there's the comedy slot, and they're not the same slot, right? Like, we're gonna do our Black show in February, we're gonna do our Hispanic show between September 15th and October 15th, and we're gonna do and it'll be cold all those times and not that many people will come out, and then we'll do comedy in the spring and it'll be fun. And when I've raised specific pieces, sometimes the response has been like, well, that doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like that's tackling the urgent issues, it doesn't feel like that's gonna be as relevant, and that blows my mind because I disagree. But I'm just curious for you all, if you've had that, if you've had to fight for comedy in that way to be taken seriously or treated as something that can be relevant, urgent, speak to the issues.
Well, I've had, done shows where they say, don't talk about politics, don't talk about race, don't talk about, and I say, okay, and then I go in and I do it anyway, because it's things that people are thinking about that's important to people, and you can still make it funny, so I don't really play by the rules a lot, but, thank you.
I just wanted to acknowledge how there's different, going back to what we were just talking about, there's different roads to success, for when we get there, There's the independent success that she's having, self-sufficient, that's beautiful, specific, right? And then we have Don Quixote, right, Quixote Nuevo here at the Denver Center, where the Denver Center has invested $500,000 on Latin artists, you know what I'm saying? Designers, actors, and so that's success too, And it's not a safe play, it's a real Chicano play, I think. Disguised as a classical safe play, but it's not. When the gringos sit down, they're like, oh my God, they're punching at me, So that's great.
Yeah, but, wouldn't you say that now the regionals have no choice? Isn't it a different time? Isn't it, now don't they have to hire a Latin director and designers and, actors?
5 years ago, that wasn't.
5 years ago, that wasn't the case. I'm saying they're not doing us any favors. I'm saying they have to, right? So it's a different time. That's why they're doing it, because they have to. It's not because they're doing us any favors, because they're thinking, oh yeah, let's give a bunch of Latin people work. They have to. They have no choice anymore. So I just wanted to say that.
They do have to, and I think they know they have to do Octavio's play. I think they know they have to hire Latine designers and actors to be in Octavio's play. I don't know if they know that they have to put Black Latines on stage and tell those stories. I don't know if they know they have to put Asian Latine stories on stage, Jewish Latine stories on stage. So it's incremental.
I'll just add. I feel like, yeah, there's some pressure to, there are specific stories that are expected of you as a person of color. And like conversation about trauma, it's like, it's absolutely a part of human experience. And so I don't want to say that that's not something we can't talk about or we can't put on stage or we can't reflect in some way. But I just feel a particular kind of way when I feel like that's what people want from me specifically. And I want to show like a full range. So a lot of times, and I do have like a really dark texture to the stuff that I write, but it's very much like hiding the meat and the potatoes. Like I'm really surrounding it by comedy. Like, okay, I'm going to cushion us into this conversation and not have it be completely this really narrow perspective. Because I do think it's a very lofty goal to think that we can talk about humanity and being alive right now without talking about trauma. Like, who's not traumatized? Our audience. There's no one that has escaped, and we feel in a very particular way, ongoing way. It's nothing new, but yeah, it feels like it's really popular and shiny, and like the stories that are going to be in that like BIPOC slot are going to be about trauma specifically because it's the big issues. And I just kind of argue like, why can't we do that and also laugh, also have humor be a part of that in some kind of way, and then also like, why are we just having these really specific slots for only really specific voices when, like we said, there's just so many. We contain multitudes. There are so many ways that our lives look and how they can change. And so it'd be great to see more of that on stage.
I'd love to hear a little bit about what y'all find funny. Like, how do we know what's funny? How do you identify what's funny or come up with what's funny? I did not send them these questions in advance.
No, I think it's funny. Yeah, it's subjective, but I think I delve more into irony. The irony of things. It's not a joke. It's more like a situation and how ironic it is. And I don't have an example, but yeah, I think you know what I mean. It's just, being Latino in the United States is ironic. It's crazy.
I love names. I love any kind of name play, like any name misspelled. Oh, here we go. Oh, hi. Any name misspelled or mispronounced or like given to one person and then changed in another. I think that's like the Key and Peele sketch that's just them doing names. That is most nutritious thing in my comedy diet. I always try to find a way to make fun of a name in an interesting and playful way. But yeah, it's a thing that's just off like this, which is a joke. You know, we have an expectation of amplification, and it goes in and out, and we're left in the limbo of how do we survive this gap? How do we express it to other people so they understand what that's like? Yeah, that's what I find funny.
I find my community is really funny. You know, like I just observe my community and I just think they're really funny. Mexicanos use a lot of bad language, right? We can't talk without saying, no cabrón, no pinche cabrona, blah, 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 right? We curse. We curse. And I love that. I love it so much that my people use really bad language. No way, no cabrona. You know, it's just like, I find that very funny. Now, in the play that is running right now, Sleep with the Angels, well, and also, so you translated that into Chicanismo, right? So I have my brother, my little brother David, he can't talk without saying, no, fuck that shit, you know? It's like fucking hot out there, and it's fucking 2 o'clock, and it's, you know, and my fucking shoes, and I have to go to the fucking market, and fuck. And so he can't talk without saying fuck, right? So, the character, the mother in the play that I have right now, Sleep with the Angels, she can't talk without cursing, right? So, and her kids are always like, Mom, and she's like, fuck. Oh, this is fucked. And are you fucking kidding me? And fuck, right? And so she does that throughout the whole play. She says fuck, or she's like, oh, fuck, I'm sorry, shit. I mean, fuck, she's like that, right? Because she can't not curse, right? So you translate into a Chicana character, not Mexicana, she's Chicana, so she's always saying fuck, right? So I find that very funny. However, so Jose Luis and I, if you guys know our theater, we have a patio outside, right? And Jose Luis is always on the patio smoking cigarettes, right? So anytime you go to our theater, you want to find Jose Luis, he's outside smoking. So then it was one of our first previews, and people were coming out, oh, it was great, blah, blah. And then one señora, she goes, estaba muy bonita la obra. Pero les tengo que decir que había muchas malas palabras. Y nomás les quería decir eso. Pero muchas gracias. And so I was like, okay, gracias. Tell 100 of your friends to come to the show. That's what I find funny.
I think we get that señora in all our shows, right?
I think, to me, things that are completely unpredictable are funny. Like if somebody's saying something and it's going one direction and then they take a turn, I just love that. I love being surprised, caught off guard, and I love dark humor. So I feel like some people say things are taboo, but sometimes it's healing. You know, like the toughest subjects you can make funny, and it's not to make light of it, but it's just part of the healing process. So I love if it's dark and it's funny, then it's really funny.
Almost all our stuff is juxtaposition, mashup. Che Guevara coming back to the 90s, Hispanic 90s. You know what I'm saying? Like you bring a fish out of water, putting, or two genres clashing. Right? So that I find funny and easier to write because, it just kind of writes itself. Oh, this person and this? Oh, okay, ooh, let's go.
Yeah, oh, completely. All of that made me so happy. Thank you for sharing that. I was told, now I know it's because I'm Mexican. I didn't know that was why. My sister once accused me that instead of filling, like where other people say or like, that I say bug. Also, I'm about to turn to y'all for your questions, so if you haven't already thought of something and you have a question for these folks, get ready. But before we do that, I also just wanted to ask y'all about your experience over time, which you already spoke to how we've seen the field evolving, the stage theater, live theater evolving, and I'd love to hear more from the stand-up world as well. But just like easy, from where we've been, where we're at now, and what you've observed from that, where might we be going? Like, where do you see? What can we be developing in our Latine comedy, our culturally specific comedy, that will bring us from where continue the traditions of where we've been, honor our history, tell our stories, document our stories, and move us forward?
Go ahead, Herbert.
Well, stand-up, I mean, stand-up
yeah.
has changed a lot over the years, right?
It definitely has, and now I started 20 years ago, and there were, not a lot of Latina comics, Asian comics, and now it's blowing up, and I think it's going to continue to rise because the population. I mean, look how many Latinos are in the world, right? So the country. So I think the more it grows and the more we support young up and coming comics, we're going to see more and more performers that fully represent the community, in the mainstream, everywhere. So I just think it's important to support the young comics that are coming up and go to their shows. If encourage people, and if you want to try it, do it. Get out there. It's important for people to see us and to not be afraid of us. And just get out there, and I feel like it's going to continue to grow, and we'll continue to talk about things that make people uncomfortable. I think race has been brought up in the media and the news more in the last 4 years, I guess, since that it ever has. And conversations are uncomfortable, but they're important. And I think the more people in entertainment that we have to be a voice to all of us, can only help and can only bring some healing and some information to people that may just be ignorant to all of it. So I look forward to seeing what happens in the future. What? No applause? Okay, nobody cares about the future.
I'm really encouraged. Escobar's Hippo, I read. I didn't see it yesterday, but I read it, and I think it's a great play. It's very funny. Very funny.
Ooh, Escobar's Hippo!
I was going to add that, I think, especially for a theater artist, here we go. It just doesn't like me. It's okay. Reaching out to folks that are doing sketch and improv and stand-up and inviting them into our theatrical spaces. There's such great storytelling that happens just in a slightly different form. We want the same audiences. A lot of times we're hanging out at the same bar. It's the same kind of storytelling, same kind of jokes. And whenever there's an opportunity, like in casting, to, for example, bring an improv actor into a more structured, scripted sort of experience, there's great learning that happens across that. And I don't know about in your community in Austin, it feels very separated. Like comedy communities over here and theaters over here. And we're jealous of each other's audiences, and we talk shit about each other, and it's like, we're all doing the same thing. Why not find some opportunities? So maybe that means on the playwriting, writing end of really extending an invitation to invite like a stand-up to write a play. What that look like? What would that storytelling look like in of a play? And sketch too. I think sketch of just being like theater. It's just basically theater. And there's incredible performers, incredible writers that are coming up through that way. So yeah, just kind of that. Maybe that also means playwrights doing stand-up and crossing over and the other. What? It's such a great teacher, though. I think anyone that's interested in being a really good comedy writer, I think you need to be a really good comedy performer as well. Have some of those instincts, or at least try it, even if it's not going to be your full gig. I just think it teaches so much. So bring that together across form.
Somebody should plan a festival that has all those
Somebody
different
should.
forms, all sharing space and celebrating each other.
Yeah, maybe in Denver.
In Los Angeles recently, a Latino comic sold out Dodger Stadium. 48,000 people. He sold out Fluffy. What's his name? Gabriel Iglesias sold out Dodger Stadium, the first comedian of any color to sell out Dodger Stadium. 48,000 people went to go see him. You know, that was historical. That was historical for stand-up comedians. You know, that was a major, major thing. So I mean, I do look at stand-up. I mean, I could never, I mean, you guys are courageous. Very courageous, right? But yeah, I think that's a great idea to, you know, mix the genres and us go there, you come here. Yeah.
All right, folks, I gave you fair warning. Who has a question? Juliana. Oh, I was going to repeat it back, but if we can take it out. Thanks, Adrienne.
Thank you. I thank you all for all your amazing words and Amelia for putting this together. One thing that has been there's a lot of women on that stage and a lot of women that are going to be on the stage this evening. And comedy is something that women are told they're not funny. So my question is for the three women on the stage is if you've been told that through your life and what you do to push forward or what you've done or what advice you have for the women that are going to be on the stage tonight and that are here that are interested in comedy and maybe have been told that they're not funny or that they can't cuss because they're a woman.
Thank you. I love that question. And they tell me I can't cuss. I say, fuck that. Yeah, I say, fuck you. Yeah, I've heard that forever. Oh, women aren't funny. And then, especially if you know, dress, like, don't wear a dress. You can't be funny. You can't look like a woman and be funny, right? You're like, you don't look like a comedian. Why? I don't have a red nose, you know, like a clown nose or something. And my biggest advice to women doing comedy, starting out doing comedy, is just prove them wrong. You know, just keep working at your craft. Just keep putting in the work and just be funny. And I don't like to be brought up as, oh, we have a woman coming to the stage now. You know, I'm just another comedian. You know, and so I feel like, you know, it's up to us. I mean, we're not going to change the perception, and we're not going to change that stupid stereotype that we're not funny. We just have to keep putting in the work, getting out there, getting ourselves booked and performing, and getting on stage and showing people that we're funny, you know? And we are. And I encourage women, we have so much experience to draw from, and I'm telling you, the best compliment is just, oh, you crushed it. You were the funniest comic out there, and they could all be men. So it's possible, and you know, and I just encourage it. Don't ever let anybody saying that bring you down, and don't ever believe it. You know, just believe in yourself. That's what I would say.
I for sure heard that, and it's so annoying. It just feels so old and like, really? Like, I think it's shocking that that's the thing that's keeping someone from making a connection. They're just immediately, the box is gender, and they're like, well, this is the expectation of what that's supposed to be, and so maybe you don't belong in this space. But to the point that she just made, that like, just being in those spaces, showing up, continuing to show up. I mean, it really sucks that we have to have a thicker skin about that harsh criticism, because you're gonna always get it. You're always gonna get that person like, who's that little girl? Why does she get to have that? One of my favorite memories from working on Doper Than Dope was we were renting space from this improv theater in Austin. It's almost all white guys named Josh that worked there. And there was like a guy, this like kid looking for his improv class. He like wandered into our rehearsal room, and like his look on his face of like, he's looking at this room, everybody's black or Latine, there's no white men in the room at all. Like he was shocked. Like he was really just scanning the room for like, where's the white man? Where's the white man? There was none. There's one white woman, and she was not in charge. I was in charge, and we all like laughed about it afterwards. But that's really what it feels like. Is they're really not expecting you to be in that room, and they're certainly not expecting you to be in charge in that room. And as much as you can find people, other women comics, other comics of color, other allies in whatever identities that they identify with, that can be really helpful. So you don't feel like you're all alone, because it is really hard to stick through it and not like put on a brave face when you're all alone. You feel like nobody's really connecting to you and what you do. But staying in it, finding other people who do support what you do, and I love that like improv yes and I've also heard people say yes and fuck you, and I like thinking about that in that instance where you're really made to feel like you don't belong. Just being like, yeah, and fuck you. I'm gonna do the thing I want to do.
Anybody else? Yes, wait. She's coming.
Hola, yo soy Paula Acevedo, soy de Guatemala y bueno, yo soy directora de teatro, trabajo con pueblos indígenas. Es la segunda vez que vengo a un festival de teatro latino y me ha despertado muchísimas preguntas. Y algo que me interesa mucho saber es cuáles son los desafíos y qué le hace falta a la comedia latina para reinventarse o para la nueva comedia latina. Eso me interesa mucho. ¿Cuáles son los desafíos?
Hello.
Challenges.
I'm Teresa Marrero and I'm translating. Do you want to
What's
translate?
desafío?
Desafío. Desafío challenge. Okay, I'm Teresa Marrero and I'm going to translate. See what I can
Satire.
do. Paula Acevedo is from Guatemala and she's a director and she works with indigenous communities in Antigua. And she wants to know what the Latinx community in the comedy foresees as a challenge to reinvent itself, to renew itself.
No, I'm just thinking reinvent, it's an evolution, it's evolution. Even in comic taste, comic sensibilities are changing as we speak, and I find that challenging. I find that very challenging because I'm from a certain generation. We did stuff a certain way, for many years, and now suddenly it's kind of questionable, you know what I'm saying? Like, can I do drag? You know what I'm saying? I did drag for 30 years with no problem, right? And now it's looked upon like, So you know what I'm saying? And that's fine. That's fine. I don't mind that. I just don't. But those are the challenges so it's an evolution, right? What's funny 30 years ago when we started is not funny anymore, or it's offensive now even, I used to do Michael Jackson, imitate Michael Jackson, with the wig y todo, that's just, it was all right. It was okay to do that in the 80s, you know what I'm saying? Nobody questioned it, but now no, of course I would never do that now, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, it's an evolution.
Yeah, I would say the same. I agree. It's an evolution. So I think it's important for comedians, Latina comedians, to keep up with what's happening in the world. To keep to be aware of the changes in the world, the changes with, like people are transgender, dressing in drag, that's looked upon differently as it was before. Certain things, there's a lot of Asian hate going on, so comedians maybe have joked about Asians before that they don't want to do that now. So it's not, we really don't want to censor ourselves, but we want to be sensitive to the community and to not lend to the hate that's going on out there. So I think it's important, the challenge for Latina comedians and all comedians, but is to be aware of what's going on in the community, in all communities, and to evolve along with it, and to stay maybe one step above it.
Next question. Let's give it up for Abigail.
Well, I just want to say I love Culture Clash. I came upon it recently, and it's ridiculous.
I'm so sorry for you.
Yeah, it's the 80s, and y'all were making 80s humor, and it was hilarious. So. I loved it.
I couldn't hear you with your mask on.
Can you give us a little bit of Edward James Olmos later, by the way?
I'm so proud of you for asking me that question.
So my question is, yesterday while watching Quiote Nuevo, I'm realizing that like a lot of the humor sort of comes from like Chicano language, right? And like a lot of the lexicon of Chicanidad sort of is like rooted in humor, and I think that's cool, and I think we are funny people, and we have funny things to say and do, but I'm wondering like, where does humor come in where it's like no longer sort of like laughing at a person because they're being a certain way or sort of being themselves, and sort of like where can we find autonomy in sort of like making characters, Latinx characters, be funny because they're saying funny things and because they're smart and because they're intelligent, and not just because they're saying like funny Chicano words that are funny because our history is funny and because we've worked through so much trauma through humor. Paso.
Our plays have a lot of comedy, well, humor in them, but also their characters are deep, and you know, the audience is not laughing at the characters, maybe laughing at the situations that the characters find themselves in, but never at the characters because the character is, you know, doing something comedic. Our plays, you know, balance drama and comedy. There's a balance between them. Always. Yeah, it's real. These are real stories that are dealing with real issues. The first play that we wrote as a company was dementia way back during the AIDS epidemic. And we were the first Latino company that was, you know, talking about AIDS and people dying of AIDS. And it was, you know, it was an important, and it had so much comedy in it. So much comedy, and music, and dancing. And, you know, but it's the way that we could tell this story, you know, and that people could be open to it, because at that time, people were still saying that their sons and brothers were dying of cancer. They were not saying that they were dying of AIDS. So, you know, that was a way that we did it. And all of our plays there's a balance there. You know, you're not laughing at the characters. So yeah, that's totally important, and we would never do that. I can send you our plays.
Another question?
Alex Alfaro has a question. Jess Martinez has a question.
Thank you, first of all, for being here on this panel. It's amazing. It's so informative and inspiring. As writers and performers, do you feel that you have to stay ahead of the political paradigm in order to create new work that is not only relevant, but also truthful, right? Because there's a lot of truth in comedy. But like what you were saying, Herbert, is very true, is that what was funny yesterday is funny today, and can even be offensive at times. How do you all as writers and performers stay ahead of that curve without betraying yourselves and betraying the truth that lies within yourselves and your experience as Latin artists.
How do you? No, I think it's great. I feel like I have to allow myself to let go of things. Like jokes, it's really rare something can be totally epic and it's gonna live beyond me. I mean, I hope so. I hope that the work can continue beyond and still be relevant and funny and interesting. But there is something about writing about this exact moment. There's something that the laugh is a little bit harder because it's happening right now. We all know the reference. And I think allowing yourself time and space to be in the room so you can get that feedback loop, so you can adjust. Sometimes it's just like, okay, this was really funny a couple of years ago, and now I have to rip that joke out and put something new that's gonna actually be present to today. And thankfully in our medium, even if a play is up on its feet, it's never really done. You can always go back and change things. It's really great rewrites, as we know from playwrights we all love and adore, do that. So it's a process of like just not being so precious with it, and that it's a living, breathing thing. And I certainly feel that way about performers too. If a performer is in a role and they're kind of doing something a little bit different than what maybe I had imagined, but what they're doing is so fucking good, and I want to make them look good, then I will like fine tune a script to fit that one performer, and maybe the next performer that takes it, it's not exactly going to be right, but that's what I think is like the joy of the job, is that it's this breathing thing and you continually be doing that. So yeah, just not being super, super precious, because things are gonna have to change, you know?
What she said.
Yes. I think you have to just live. You have to live and be out there and be with people and see what's important and see what's changing. And in order to stay, you can't stay sheltered. You know, you can't. Just have to get out there and live. And I think that some of my jokes I've had to adjust. But it's still me, it's still my experience, and or I can still write things. It's always going to be true to me. I think if I can't write material that's true to myself, that's when I'll stop doing stand-up. But I feel like it's possible to still be true to yourself and still evolve, which is the best way to describe it, what Herbert said. Because we're all evolving every day, and our comedy should reflect that.
I think it's important to live in your community. Participate in your community. What happens sometimes is, as artists, we become disconnected somehow with the real community and, the gente, our gente, they're living their everyday life, and as artists, many times we're, especially when we come out of the university and we start on a new journey and stuff, and then all of a sudden you go back home and you're like, hey, this is who I am, and you find the beauty in it, and you see the daily issues that they're dealing with. It's kind of different with when you're a playwright, because it's not, you can't write a play overnight, right? I mean, you can, I guess, but you can't write a good play overnight. But so it takes a while, right, to think of your story, to figure out who your characters are, figure out your structure, all of that stuff. So that could take a year, right? And you think it's a timely topic, and then when you're done with the play, nobody's talking about that anymore, because things change so quickly. So, like the play Sleep with the Angels Now, I wrote it before, we were supposed to do it before COVID, and it was, about a family, and the son is figuring out his gender identity. 2 years ago, that was, a topic. I mean, it still is, and it's an important thing for our audience now. When they come and see it, they're like, wow, I'm so glad we're talking about this, because their kids are talking about it every day in elementary school, right? So, yeah, it's just like living. I mean, being part of your community, going back to your people, finding the beauty there, all of that. I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, Alex, but
Hello, it's me. Hello, thank you so much for your time. You kind of touched on it a little bit, living in our community. We have seen there's several different waves of Renaissance and work being done by Latinx artists, whether it's on stage, on TV, on film. Yet, however, we still see a lot of it being white Latinas. How do you think us as people, especially us as white Latinas, can do the work to highlight more of our Afro-Latino community, more of our queer community, our Asian and Latina community, our Middle Eastern Latina community? Like, how do we do that legwork so that even the bigger picture of it can also bring that into our culture, our spectrum, that is not just one shade. We are all of this.
It all comes down to the writing. Again, all the issues you brought up are it's up to the writer to put those in the script, right? That's just, one script's not gonna solve all that, you know what I'm saying? But yes, I agree. We have to start showing more diversity in our scripts, and I'm seeing that more and more with the new writers, So what you're asking is yes, it's needed, and I think it's happening. I think it's happening little by little.
Yeah, I mean, the writer has ultimate control of making the jobs and making that opportunity and feeling like you can collaborate with folks outside of your lived experience, either, paid consultant, paid dramaturg, that can really bring that voice, if it's a voice that's not exactly your own, because I would say that I don't feel like I have to just write my one very narrow specific voice, that I'm interested in multiple and interested, just genuinely curious about how other people see the world and how they're moving through space and their perspective. And so, yeah, sometimes it means like working with a specific dramaturg who comes from that experience, who can speak, kind of correct me, and then being like humble or gracious enough to not take it personal that I got something wrong, because how could I? I'm living only my life and reading only the books that I read. There's no way to contain all of that in one person. So really leaning on those collaborators who can really help inform. Someone's telling you, hey, this joke doesn't fly, this doesn't make sense, and saying, okay. And then I'd say producers are the other, like, yes, we have ultimate control of the creation of the world, but then producing, it's wild when I'm programmed as a playwright in a festival with another Black Latina person. We're like, whoa, well, and it's great, and the fact that someone's done that, and not because they're like, we're gonna be on the like Instagram post is like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, it just happened, and both our plays just happened to be programmed, and so I don't, from the producer perspective, I would imagine that just really meaning, really stepping outside of, maybe it's asking, like, if you've been working with one playwright or artist a whole lot, like, who else should I be reading? Like, give me the name of 10 other artists coming up, alongside you, or that are students of yours, or people you've just kind of been hearing out in the community, and really actively trying to make a relationship, because it feels like you're planting a seed of relationship, and it just takes a while for those seeds to grow. For some people, it seems to grow really, really quickly, and for others, it just kind of takes time. So, I'd love to see more. I feel like the people who really are reaching out to me as a playwright are usually other playwrights, and I have gotten gigs because other playwrights are the ones to like recommend me or advocate for me, more so than literary managers, producers, directors. But sometimes directors are also that person too. They say like, hey, I like your work, or I think you're cool, whatever. Let's get on a Zoom call, let's have a coffee, let's start a relationship. So planting those seeds, and planting those seeds not only within the community, but folks outside the community as well, I think is really, especially other communities of color, because I really think there's so many. When I'm in a Latinx space, I'm like, where are Black people? Just as if I'm in a Black space, I might be like, where are folks that speak Spanish? Where's everybody? Because so much of our stories and histories are intertwined and overlap and are the same history. So hopefully that helps. Yes.
I totally agree with what's been said, and I also just, as a producer on the stage, wanted to say, certainly the writing absolutely creates those opportunities, but we also don't have to wait for the writing. I think, in casting, like in hiring of design teams, right? There's a lot of opportunities to bring more people into the fold and just not fearing that conversation, right? I mean, the Repertory Theater of St. Louis recently did a production of Luis Alfaro's play Mojada. And after almost every performance I was at, people came up and were like, why was it that everybody was Mexican except there was also a black girl? I was like, well, first of all, only one person, I think, in that cast was Mexican. There were all kinds of Latinos in that cast, and including the person that you perceived as the black girl. And the woman so some of you asked me why there was a white person. Like, because Latinos are a diverse group of people, that's why. And I think that's something that we just have to keep doing until that's understood, right? And that we're not answering that question anymore because people are seeing that enough that we go, oh, of course, a group of Latinos is a diverse group.
Yeah. I think we just have to make a commitment to it. I mean, many years ago, when my compadre died of AIDS, I made a commitment that I will put a queer character in every single one of my plays. And I have. You just have to make a commitment. You make a commitment. And as a playwright, you commit to it, and that's change. That's how you change. That's how you change things.
I want to make sure that we have a bathroom break before our breakout session, so I think we can do one more question. Okay, fine, we'll do two. We'll do Jose Luis, and we'll do, I'm sorry, my friend, what was your name? And Angel, Jose Luis and Angel.
It's really, it's interesting that you're talking about this conversation. It's not a question, it's like you guys did a beautiful job, and I want to commend you, Amelia, and the organizers, because look at this stage. This is how the American theater should look like. This is how we should look at ourselves. So to me, this is a big step, even just being here, listening, and this is how relationships begin. And this is how we produce each other. And this is how we learn from each other. So I really want to thank you, all of you, because this is beautiful, and we have to learn from this, that this is only the beginning of our relationships, of communities. Having a Black Latina, an Asian Latin, the other three, I know you guys, but I'm saying, and I know, but I think it's fantastic. I'm fascinated because we have to tell the American theater. And I'm not talking about the regionals, I'm talking about ourselves. We have to tell each other, this is the work that we have to do ourselves in order to move forward the language and the perception and who we are as Latino people in the United States. So thank you very much. It's really not a question.
Hi, my name is Angel. So my question is, I'm thinking of the lyric from A Strange Loop musical, which is, if you can't please the Caucasians, you'll never get the dough. And in Texas, in high school, where my career started, it was an overwhelmingly white program, very white. And then to Greeley for University of Northern Colorado to study overwhelmingly white. And so I've intentionally chosen for my post-collegiate question is, how do you work towards getting that little Caucasian devil off your shoulder where you're trying to understand that this will be perceived by a white audience, like the shows that I've done, it's been primarily a white audience because that's where I was at the time. So how do I stop caring about that and make work that I know will make my people happy and not give a fuck about that white seal of approval?
There's a book by Maya Angelou, and she talks about the first time she went to Africa and how when she got off of the plane that everybody was black. From the president to, the janitor. And she felt a certain empowerment and a certain, she felt centered, right? We don't have that. And that's why we live in this trauma constantly, because we're always looking for that approval, my mother even does that, y era gringa, and she liked it, y era gringa, and it's something that has come down for generations, that we're looking for that wide approval. We want to be, on the stage at this, predominantly white institution, because then that means, that we made it, and so I understand it. I don't know how to tell you to get rid of it. The only thing I can say is, look at how beautiful you are. Look at what a beautiful human being you are. Whose approval do you need except for your own approval, right? So that's the only thing I can say. Because being on a white stage isn't going to validate you. It's not going to make you feel whole. It's not going to make you love yourself, right? So, what? And it won't even make you money.
Why did you touch me?
I just want to say, don't give a fuck. Just be true to yourself, and the people that love you are going to love you for you. If you water yourself down to please Whitey, you're never going to be happy. You know what I mean? And so and also when you be yourself, when you're yourself, every people, there's going to be there's good and bad and everything, right? But good white people are going to love you too, So whoever doesn't isn't for you. So it doesn't matter, just be true to yourself. And in the end, you're going to feel whole inside, and just know that. And the more you're true to yourself, and the more you get out there and you expose yourself and you live your dream, you do what you want to do, then the more people are going to see you and fall in love with you, and you're not going to care anymore.
Add to that is just re-examining what success looks like for you, and that it's not going to look like anyone else's path at all. And quite often we are looking within that white framework. It's impossible. I would love to be completely absent of it. It's certainly not what drives me at the desk. I'm not like, ooh, for a white audience, I have to do this or I have to explain this. But it's just like you said, it's on the shoulder. It's always just kind of sitting there. It's something you grapple with. But when I think about my goal as a writer, or my goal for my career, it's to make shit I like or even love, hopefully love. That's lofty. Sometimes I just like what I write. But make stuff I like, love, with people I like, love, for people I like, love, And if that's in my backyard, making theater, or in a huge house, it kind of doesn't matter. It's more the quality of the people that are in the rehearsal room with me, directing, all of that. And it can take some time to find those people, but when you find those people, hold them really, really tight, don't let them go. Keep finding excuses to work together, to hire them, to recommend them for things. All of that good juju, that good karma, it does come back to you. That proves so much more for me. I meet you and I'm like, oh, I want to have a drink with you. That means more to me than looking at your bio and going, oh, you've done all this fancy stuff, and it's hard to not think about that. It's hard to not see the competition, the scarcity mindset. All of that is very, very real. To acknowledge that, it's very, very real. But as much as you can, just kind of take a break from that and just kind of reframe. What does that really look like for you? I love that you're moving to a space that's more diverse. I'm in a predominantly white institution right now for grad school, and it is really rough. It's a lot of fighting. And I did not come to school to be a lawyer, but I feel that way, going point for point. This is why this has to be this way, and that's not what I'm here to do. But all of a sudden, that's the education I'm getting more than the art making, which is what I wanted, It's really, really hard. But hopefully you have people already in your life and community, or you'll be meeting people throughout this weekend, if not elsewhere, that can lift you up. Yeah.
There's in Mexico, there used to be hacenderos, right? The owners of the haciendas, right? And what they would do is they would choose certain indigenous sirvientes, servants, and bring them inside of the house, right? They would bring them inside of the house, and they were treated differently than the other sirvientes, right? They would bring them into the house. They would give them different clothing. They would feed them differently. And then those sirvientes would feel better and feel that they were above los sirvientes que estaban afuera. Just think about that. Keep that in mind as we move forward, as theater workers. That's all.
Y'all are so amazing. As our closeout, first, before we do our closeout, can we just give a round of applause for these incredible panelists? As we close, sorry, I didn't mean to cut y'all's applause short. As we close, I want to do just a quick lightning round. If you have a project, a piece, either that people can check out online, on stage, in print, however they can access your work. I want people to be able to learn more about you. Somebody already found Culture Clashes videos from the 80s, but for anyone else who didn't, where can folks see your work?
Oh, well, come to the LATC, Latino Theater Company, our theater. We have 2 shows running now, Sleep with the Angels, Andrea and Doreen. We have Marta Carrasco opening. We only do plays by people of color. So you have your home there. Come there. You can read a Mexican trilogy. It's published by Samuel French. My play is in the book that you just, I think, which one is that? Dementia, and also Premeditation you can read in the other Encuentro anthology. Yeah.
I wrote a non-Latin play called Grandmaster Funk, which has African Americans in it, and it's about funk music and space and science fiction. But it's one of it was going to be produced at the Rep in October, but as you know, the Rep is now closed and has canceled all the shows. So that's too bad. But I'm talking to other people about it. I'm working with this small theater down in Chula Vista called Onstage Playhouse, which I really, yeah, there you go. 3rd Avenue, right? Chula Vista in the house. Anyway, I'm working with them because there's it's a 100-seater. There's just a lot of liberty. It's back to the when you're used to being in a big organization, and then when you go to the real small theaters, you feel a certain freedom. Even though there's no money, there's freedom. There's just freedom. And I'm doing a play there this Christmas called "It's a Wonderful Vida," which is kind of an adaptation of "It's a Wonderful Life" for Christmas.
So I'll be at the Comedy Works next week. The Boulder Comedy Festival, June 23rd and 25th. So if you want to see me make white people uncomfortable, please come to that. My website is DonellePrado.com. And tonight, come out to Rice's.
I am graduating soon from grad school. I'm very excited. Woo! I'm really excited. So my thesis production, This Bitch, Esta Sangre Quiero, is it's not a premiere, so it can still be world premiered, but it's having a presentation. Estefania Fadul is directing. I don't know if she's here, but yeah, so it's a really cool crew. Yay! It's a really cool crew, and yeah, I'm really excited for that. That's going to be in Fayetteville, Arkansas. If you just happen to be passing through town, let me know. I'd love to buy you a drink and have you come see the show. Oh, sorry, September. Yes, thank you. September 30th through October 9th. With 8 performances. And then if you're in Austin, Texas, my play Costa has its world premiere finally, which is great, knock on wood. Long time developing. I mean, talk about a company that, like, from the very first seed of an idea, like, has just helped me workshop it over the years. And we're gonna be at the Blanton Museum of Art, playing alongside, they're bringing in Costa paintings from, I think, Peru and Spain that are also gonna be in the exhibit, so it'll be sort of like an experience where we're kind of imagining it might not be a traditional theater audience, and we'll see how that play, we'll see what that play looks like in a more traditional space. But that is October 20th through 30th, Austin, Texas. So please come if you can. Yeah.
Y'all, I'm so grateful to each and every one of you. If anyone didn't get a chance to see Quijote Nuevo last night, please go see Herbert. Closing weekend. Thank you all. I appreciate you. Everyone, we are gonna have our physical theater, the art of play workshop is in the salon, and we have the fantastic Sonia and Patrice, I believe in the lobby, right? Unless that moved since last I said that? No, great, in the lobby. Please, you've got a few minutes, grab another cafecito, take a break, and then find yourselves at the workshops. And back here for the show at 7:30, your badge gets you a ticket. And if you haven't downloaded Lyft, don't forget to do that for the code to get to Raíces. The show is at 7:30. The pre-show, I think, is at 7. Yes, the pre-show toast is at 7.